That's nasty.
Welcome back, everybody. Chuck Nasty on Fantasy Football here. It is Tuesday night. We are going to start the Week 5 waiver wire pickup stream here. Help you guys get some good players off of the wire this week, those that perform pretty well. First and foremost, I've had a couple people that were giving me a little bit of flack on some of the defenses that didn't perform this week. Well, if any of you guys projected Jordan Howard to score 3 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers on the road, then you should probably get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this, because nobody saw that coming. Not to mention all of the other upsets that happened last week, where the Baltimore Ravens got absolutely steamrolled by the Cleveland Browns. What is happening? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers showed out and put up 55 points against the Los Angeles Rams. Listen, we all play fantasy football. We all understand that stuff happens. I want to apologize for my streaming defense of the Green Bay Packers this past week. I started them. I got -1 points. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way that it goes sometimes. Last week was just a bad week. We're going to scratch it. If you did start the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I had also suggested against Andy Dalton in prime time, you might have won your matchup like I did. So there's always a silver lining. But anyways, let's jump into the waiver wire pickups for the week. First, I'm going to go over some of the quarterback positions. I've talked a little bit about some of these guys that are starting to get picked up in some leagues. But Jacoby Brissett for the Indianapolis Colts, 35% owned on Yahoo, and it seems like he's doing pretty well in Frank Reich's offense. I'm actually really, really stoked with the progress that he's made. He's consistently throwing 2 or more touchdowns in every single game and averaging like 290 yards per game. That's pretty crazy. He didn't even have T.Y. Hilton last week, and he still threw for 310 yards and 3 touchdowns. If he's on the waiver wire and you're in a 2 QB league or something where you might need a potential super flex, anything along those lines, and he's available, go grab him. I mean, this man is not making mistakes at quarterback, and even without any weapons, he's still putting up fantasy points. So, good pickup there. Andy Dalton with the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I know what you're thinking. You saw what happened on Monday night against the Steelers. It wasn't pretty, but just remember, before that, he was the number 10 ranked quarterback in fantasy. So everybody's going to have a bad game. And, he's got a pretty good streaming option this week against a very weak Arizona Cardinals secondary. So 35% owned on Yahoo. Andy Dalton, if he's on your waiver wire and you're having some QB problems, pick him up, throw him in this week. Next up is Chase Daniel with the Chicago Bears. Now, surprise, surprise, he's 0% owned on Yahoo. And kind of makes sense because everybody thought that Trubisky's going to be the starting quarterback there. But, Chase Daniel got forced into that game, and he actually looked pretty good. I mean, he completed 22 of 30 passes for 195 yards and a touchdown. And Trubisky had a sling on his arm. I'm not sure how many weeks that means or how many weeks he's going to be out, but it looks like Chase is going to have a pretty good matchup this week because they play against the Raiders in London. Anything could happen. Next up, Marcus Mariota. I personally hate myself for saying that because I had such high aspirations for Marcus Mariota when he actually came into the league. He's had a new offensive coordinator every single year. And, he had a pretty good game last week, right? He had no interceptions for the first time in a while. 227 yards, 3 touchdowns thrown. And, maybe there's a possibility that there's something we haven't seen. But don't expect too much because they have a pretty rough matchup against the Buffalo Bills in Tennessee. So probably wouldn't recommend playing him this week. But 11% owned on Yahoo. Marcus Mariota if you need a quarterback. Last but not least of the QBs, Dwayne Haskins. Now, I knew I was going to have to bring it up, and it was one of those things where I'm like, man, I don't really know how this is going to go over. I mean, 3% owned on Yahoo. If it's not a dynasty league, I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense to add him because he came into the game for Case Keenum and 9 of 17 for 107 yards and interceptions. I can't help but laugh. But at the end of the day, he is a rookie quarterback, and that was his first matchup, So he's got a pretty nasty gauntlet of teams ahead of him. New England, San Francisco, at Minnesota in the Dome, at Buffalo. Maybe a bench stash, but depending on where you're at, if you need to stash a quarterback with some upside, there's a potential there. I'm not saying he's going to be good. Don't take it out of context. Just put him on the bench in case you need him. But let's move forward to some running backs, which is more important. Most of us need running backs, not quarterbacks, but you never know this year. It's been a little bit of a strange year. Now, Jordan Howard, we kind of talked about how we didn't see him scoring 3 touchdowns against the Packers. And to be honest, he's a part of a 3-headed monster in that backfield. Sproles, Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard. Now, he did score 3 touchdowns. And the running backs coach, if you remember, the classic running back, Deuce Staley, he said they're going to use the hot hand. And if they're going to use the hot hand, maybe the hand is hot for Jordan Howard this week? I don't know. Just a speculative ad in case you absolutely need a running back. Next up, Ronald Jones. I don't even know why I continue to talk about these guys. I've talked about Peyton Barber, then I talk about Ronald Jones, then I talk about Peyton Barber, then I talk about Ronald Jones. I don't even think Bruce Arians knows what to do with this backfield. So Ronald Jones ran 70 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries this past weekend. You look at the two of these guys, and Ronald Jones appears to be the better back, but it just really depends on what week or what the game script's going to be like. I'm not a big Buccaneers guy. I don't have too much faith in either of the two of these guys, and Ronald Jones is still 43% owned on Yahoo, so in 57% of your leagues, he's out there available for those of you that are really thin at the running back position. Just something to think about. Jalen Samuels. Now, I own Jalen everywhere, and he is 31% owned. James Conner went out with an ankle injury. They're not sure what his timeline's going to be. He's still being evaluated per Mike Tomlin. And you'd kind of expect Conner to play week 5, unless we hear otherwise. But Jalen Samuels looked pretty good hitting some of those holes on Monday night. Granted, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. So just keep that in mind. But, he had 18 touches this past week. So he's got an expanded role, and there's some potential for him there, especially if James Conner's out for a while. So definitely worth a waiver wire claim. Next up, Rex Burkhead, New England Patriots, 43% owned. Now, he kind of had a foot injury when he was coming into this game. So it was one of those situations where I wasn't sure how he was going to do to begin with. But this backfield is another tricky one. The Patriots play Russian roulette with their running backs. They always have. And Patriots have a pretty favorable draw this week. They play the Washington Redskins. So Burkhead might have some flex appeal, RB4 upside if you absolutely have to play him. But for the most part, he's not going to be an every week starter until either of the two of Sony Michel or James White goes down. So more of a stash than anything else. But if you're in a bad spot at running back, might be a good guy to add. Raheem Mostart, or I like to say, must start, baby. 49ers, just coming off bye. This is still the same deal. I feel like we're seeing a lot of 3-headed monsters in the backfield. Philly's got one. San Fran has one. New England has one. Raheem Mostart is part of a 3-headed snake. And Jeff Wilson's been poaching the goal line work. Matt Breida's been getting most of the work in between there. And between the 20s, I should say. And then Tevin Coleman's coming back in a little bit. So what's the role for Raheem? Nobody really knows. But if a couple of injuries end up falling the right way, he could be an every week option. So just another stash option for you. Jamal Williams, Green Bay Packers. If you watch that game and you watch that hit by Barnett, it was pretty disgusting. And Jamal Williams, his body fell limp to the ground. I was just, praying for the guy. I'm like, man, that's messed up. But at the end of the day, if he comes back, he might miss a game or maybe even 2. He was averaging like 14 touches a game in the Packers backfield. So there's a little bit of another dynamic I'm going to talk about right after this. But he might be a good stash, for somebody that's going to get backfield work there and could be productive in that offense. So you might need a week, maybe 2, before you're able to play him. Worth a shot. The backup option, if Jamal Williams doesn't come back in there, being that he's only 15% owned on Yahoo, is Dexter Williams. If you guys watched preseason stuff, he had 37 rushes for 128 yards and a touchdown in the preseason, caught 5 passes. So he wouldn't be somebody that you would start yet, but they're going to have somebody in that backfield to supplement Aaron Jones' workload. And if Jamal Williams isn't healthy enough to do it, it's going to be Dexter Williams. So just keep an eye out. Let's move on to wide receivers. Geronimo Allison, 24% owned on Yahoo. Now, Devontae Adams, I actually just traded him before his turf toe injury. Shout out to Josh for taking that on for me. Of course, he has a good game the week I trade him. Is what it is. Happens, man. Devontae Adams had turf toe. They're not saying whether or not he's going to play in this game. He left that contest with the Eagles that Thursday. He got a little bit of extra time to rest up, but they play the Cowboys this week. And I think that Geronimo Allison's going to be in line for a ton more targets if Adams can't play. So something to keep in mind. Golden Tate, baby. He's back. No more fertilizer, steroid, performance-enhancing drugs for him. He's coming back this week. 49% owned. So he was actually drafted in a ton of the leagues that I'm in. Hopefully, your league mates don't share the same acumen that mine do, and he's available on the waivers. That'd be sweet. But Daniel Jones looked pretty good. He's looked pretty good so far, and you're giving him another target. I like it a lot. Typically, young rookie quarterbacks tend to have a safety valve that is either a tight end or a slot receiver because they're not too far down the field. Golden Tate fits that bill. Pick him up. I got Deontay Johnson next, of none other than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, this is one where I'm trying to kind of rectify to myself that I made a bonehead play trusting Dante Moncrief. Now, I drafted him in a couple leagues as like that upside wide receiver 2, thinking Antonio Brown's targets have to go to somebody. And the Steelers are basically on the same page that I am. After watching him drop 7 balls week 1, they're like, look, I'm done with you. We're moving on to Deontay Johnson. He's had a pretty good couple of games. 6 for 77 and 1 touchdown on 6 targets. Caught all 6 of his targets against the Bengals on Monday Night Football. Before that, he had 3 for 52 and a touchdown. But the most important part about Deontay Johnson is that his snap percentage is just, it's third highest, right behind Juju, right behind James Washington. So you have the two of those guys that are like 86, 84% snap range, and then Deontay Johnson, 79%, 63% range the last couple weeks. So if you're looking for somebody that has a high probability of doing something, you're looking for that upside, it's going to be somebody that's on the field. And Deontay Johnson has that upside. 7% owned on Yahoo. Now, there was a couple teams on bye last week, one of which being the New York Jets. So I don't think so, but you never know with these fantasy owners. Jamison Crowder might be on your waiver wire. All right, he's 45% owned on Yahoo, and some people might not have had the room for him on the bye. Take a peek. As soon as Darnold comes back, he gets an immediate bump. But even if he doesn't come back right away, Luke Falk is going to need a safety valve, and Crowder's not going to be too far down the field for him. It's going to be a match made in heaven. He's getting a ton of targets this year. A couple of other guys that are not owned very much. These are more deep league, possibly 12 to 14 league, deep targets. Auden Tate, Cincinnati Bengals. He's had some pretty high snap percentages over the last couple weeks. 89% of snaps played, 91% of snaps played. And he had 6 catches for 88 yards on 10 targets against the Bills, and then 4 for 50 on 6 targets on Monday. So, maybe there's some upside there. Might be more of a dynasty fit. I personally don't want a ton to do with the Cincinnati Bengals, but John Ross is going to be out for like the next month. And AJ Green isn't back yet, so there's got to be somebody else there to take some of those targets behind Tyler Boyd. I think Auden Tate's probably going to be the one to do it. Also gives a slight bump to Tyler Eifert as well. Last wide receiver I have for you, Cole Beasley, 12% owned on Yahoo. So he's available in 88% of the leagues. I've checked all mine. He's not on any of mine. I wish some of these guys would just make a mistake and leave Cole Beasley, the target machine in Buffalo, on the waiver wire for me. Hasn't had a touchdown yet. And, but he's one of my favorite route runners because he's one of those really shifty slot guys that if he catches the ball on like a bubble screen, there's a good chance that he's getting 10, 15, 20. He makes some sick moves. Fast little bugger. But he's averaging 6 catches, 62 yards a game, and has seen double-digit targets in back-to-back games. So plays the Titans this week in Tennessee. And, maybe he has a big game. I'm not saying he's going to, but maybe he does. I got a couple other guys for you. I did say that was the last wide receiver. I lied. I apologize. Mohamed Sanu's available in a ton of leagues, 27% owned. And it seemed like maybe Calvin Ridley's a bit banged up or not performing up to expectations. So there's a decent chance that Sanu actually has some value with Matt Ryan having 40-plus throws per game. But, just a potential option for you. And then last but not least, both of the Tennessee Titans wide receivers. Corey Davis, I'm not a big Corey Davis guy, but he's 47% owned, so available in 53% of the leagues. And, he actually had a good game. He had 91 yards and a touchdown. And A.J. Brown was the other one who had just a monster game. So I wouldn't spend a ton on these guys. If you got a waiver one priority, there might be a better option than A.J. Brown, depending on how badly you need a wide receiver. But Mariota's got to throw to somebody. And A.J. Brown had 94 yards and 2 touchdowns. So A.J. Brown looked really good in that game, and he did more of the work than Mariota did. I have more trust in A.J. Brown's ability than I do in Marcus to throw the touchdowns. But a couple of tight ends here before we end the waiver wire stream for you. Chris Herndon is a favorite of mine. I actually drafted him in a couple leagues, held on to him for 4 weeks, coming off of a suspension. He's only 16% owned on Yahoo. And, he served his suspension. They've got their bye this week, week 5. And so he'll be back week 6. And we talked a little bit about rookie quarterbacks. And, they need a safety valve. That is typically a tight end or it is a slot receiver. So Herndon fits the bill if Luke Falk's in there. He's also got a pretty good rapport with Sam Darnold when he ever comes back from mono. So posted 39 receptions for 502 yards and 4 touchdowns as a rookie last year. I'm expecting to see more from him this year. And then Dawson Knox, 14%. The kid had a game last week. 58 yards, 3 catches. Now, obviously, what actually happened on the field and his fantasy production are totally different. He didn't have a super relevant fantasy day, but he's running really good routes. He's getting open, and he is getting targets from Josh Allen. So, the interesting part is to see a tight end actually run down the field to get targets. You don't see that a ton unless your name's Travis Kelce or maybe George Kittle. So Dawson Knox might have a bigger potential role if you are playing in a tight end premium league or you need a stash. You have somebody that's injured. Just food for thought. So if you guys are new here, make sure you swing in, smash that subscribe button for your boy. Check out all the other videos. We're posting weekly videos, 3 or 4 videos weekly, streaming defenses, waiver wire pickups, pretty much anything I can do to help you win your league. Make sure you drop any questions or comments on your specific roster down below. Let's make some money together. Also, stay tuned. Streaming defenses coming up next. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.
The mega happy ending, that's doable. Good night and party on!
Party on, Wayne!